Welcome to the first race, your ultimate Wednesday warm-up for the 2026 F1 season.
This isn't just about a race, it's about a question. It's a test of engineering, a test of nerve, and a test of the absolute limit of what both man and machine can possibly endure. You see, for 30 decades now, Melbourne's Albert Park has been the first chapter of the Formula One season, and more often than not, it's the most brutal. For 2026, the sport has literally torn up the rule book. We're talking new engines, active aerodynamics, a whole new philosophy of what a racing car should even be. And after months of secret development, after a few frantic days of testing, the first true judgment happens right here. Because Albert Park, well, it's more than just a track. It's an arbiter. It's this temporary space carved out of public parkland and just lined with unforgiving concrete. It rewards absolute precision, but it punishes the slightest mistake with savage finality. And this circuit's violent nature, it's actually rooted in an equally turbulent origin.
So the story of Formula One in Melbourne, it doesn't begin with some big celebration. No, it begins with a secret, a political power play that literally ripped a race from one city and planted it in another, sparking a conflict that, you could argue, has never really ended.
For a decade, Adelaide was the heart of Australian motorsport. It hosted the beloved season finale. But while its organizers thought that renewing the contract was just a formality, a clandestine operation was already underway. Behind the scenes, Victorian Premier Jeff Kennett and businessman Ron Walker were negotiating directly with Formula One's own Bernie Ecclestone. The deal was signed, sealed, and kept completely secret from the public, and of course, from Adelaide. And here's the price of that coup: $60 million. A deal so secret that its clauses are still protected by law to this very day. And there was one non-negotiable condition from Ecclestone: the race had to be at Albert Park. Not a purpose-built circuit, no, but right in the heart of the city's public green space. The moment that announcement was made, it triggered immediate and fierce opposition.
The government's response to its own citizens, who were just protesting the commercial takeover of their park, was, well, it was dismissive and contemptuous. Premier Kennett's own words, right here, they just reveal the deep social fracture that this decision created. This was never just about a race. It was a battle for the soul of a public space. And this number, this was the human cost of that battle. In the early years, the protests and the acts of civil disobedience led to almost 700 arrests. The construction of the track itself required removing over 1,000 trees, some of which actually predated European settlement. A circuit was being built, but an entire community felt like it was being broken. The track that finally emerged from all this conflict is a bit of a technical anomaly. It's a hybrid, right? Part permanent circuit, part temporary street fight. For most of the year, these are just public roads. But for one weekend, they become one of the fastest and most treacherous venues in all of motorsport.
Back in 2021, the circuit underwent surgery. The slow, kind of clumsy chicane at turns 9 and 10 was basically amputated. It was replaced by a flat-out, high-speed run right along the lake. Now, the goal was to improve overtaking, sure, but the consequence was a huge increase in average speed. And with that came a huge increase in risk. You know, the challenge here is totally unique. The track surface starts the weekend green, which is just a nice way of saying it's dusty and slick from months of normal traffic. As the cars lay down rubber, the grip evolves dramatically, forcing teams to chase a constantly moving target. And all of it, every single inch, is walled in by concrete, especially along that lakeside drive section where there is zero runoff, no room for error at all. This unforgiving nature has produced some of the most violent accidents in modern Formula One. And these aren't just crashes, they're extreme physical events that test the absolute limits of safety engineering and human biology. Two moments, 20 years apart, really define this track's legacy. So the scene is set, the very first Melbourne Grand Prix. On the very first lap, at the heavy braking zone for turn 3, a chain reaction. Martin Brundle's Jordan is launched into the air. The first impact happens at nearly 290 kilometers per hour. What you see next, it's just a horrifying sequence of barrel rolls and impacts. It's a high-speed deconstruction of a Formula One car. The chassis is torn in half, the engine is ripped right off its mountings. And yet, somehow, Brundle crawls from the wreckage unharmed. The reason why is this completely counterintuitive principle of safety design. The car destroying itself is precisely what saved his life. You see, each fragment that breaks away carries with it a huge chunk of the crash's kinetic energy. dissipating forces that would otherwise go straight into the driver. It's survival by controlled disintegration. So, 2 decades pass. The cars are faster, they're way more complex, but the track remains. And at the exact same point on the circuit, Fernando Alonso clips the back of another car at over 300 kilometers per hour. The result is terrifyingly similar. But this time we have the data. Onboard telemetry recorded a peak lateral deceleration of 46 G. Now that is a force at the absolute edge of what a human body can possibly withstand. To put that number into perspective for you, for a fraction of a second, Alonso's body weighed nearly 3.5 metric tons. The force was so violent that his custom-molded carbon fiber seat literally fractured right behind his shoulders. He survived, yeah, but with fractured ribs and a collapsed lung, a testament to how far safety cell technology has come. Brundle's crash was a visual horror show. His survival was a mix of physics and just pure fortune. Alonso's, though, that was a telemetry horror show. We couldn't see the forces, but the data was screaming. His survival wasn't luck, it was meticulously engineered. 2 crashes, 2 decades apart, that perfectly illustrate the relentless, data-driven pursuit of safety in a sport that's defined by its danger. And now, all of that history just hangs over the 2026 season opener. A new era of cars. Faster, lighter, more electrically complex than anything we have ever seen, is about to face this concrete gauntlet. Preseason testing gave us some hints, but Albert Park will provide the answers.
The consensus in the paddock points to Mercedes as the team to beat. Everyone thinks they've got significant pace held in reserve. Ferrari, well, they set the fastest outright times, but the question is, were they running closer to their true potential? And then you have Aston Martin. Their preseason was an absolute disaster, crippled by abnormal vibrations from their new Honda power unit that were systematically destroying their batteries. Their goal for Melbourne isn't to win, it's simply to finish.
And there's a new variable that adds to the tension: the start. The 2026 engines got stripped of the MGU-H, that's the complex system that helps kill turbo lag, so now they suffer from a really severe delay in power delivery. To compensate, a new 5-second hold has been added to the start procedure. It lets the drivers spin up their turbos. But any little inconsistency in that launch, on the short, frantic run to turn 1, it could be catastrophic. So, the stage is set. The most ambitious technical reset in the sport's history is about to be judged by one of its most unforgiving circuits. The question isn't just who will be fast, it's who will survive. And here in Melbourne, we are...
Subscribe now. See you next Wednesday for our next circuit warm-up on the first race.